In the early 1990s, when I got my Master System, I was obsessed with playing basketball at school. Being a big, tall guy like myself, it was a natural sporting progression for me despite my issues with dyspraxia and a lack of coordination. Also, I was developing a real interest at the time in horror movies and horror literature, so when I first saw Basketball Nightmare, this game ticked all my boxes. It was a basketball game, it had monsters in it. What more could I wish for? Well, probably quite a lot with hindsight, but at the time, even though this was an incredibly simple game, it satisfied my urges. It allowed you to play a quick, smooth-ish game of basketball on your Master System against a variety of spooky opponents. Now, I'm not going to pretend that this is the greatest game ever made. It isn't, but it stands out for me. It has a few good things going for it. For example, I happen to think that the graphics are pretty nice, even if there is an awful lot of sprite flicker. But the close-ups for the basket scoring, lovely little cutscenes, they have a real nice anime feel, and it was one of my earliest exposures to that style of artwork. Gameplay wise, it's fairly simple. The Master System has 2 buttons. So one is shoot, one is pass. That's it. But there are a few things you can do in the game. Obviously, when you're on defence, one of the buttons switches you from player to player, the other allows you to attempt to steal the ball. Now, I can say, looking at the footage I've got of this game here, I'm not doing particularly well. It's been years since I've properly played it, but I do know there were a couple of little cheats almost that you could do. For example, if you could find the right patch down in the bottom corner, you could pretty much hit a 3-point shot every single time you tried to make it. Now, is this cheating? Is it not? I'm not sure, but it did make the game somewhat easier than maybe it could have been. Now, let's talk about this again. The game does look quite simplistic yet good. The sprites are well defined and reasonably well animated, even if every single player on your team is identical. They're all red-headed guys for some weird reason. Now, plot. The game actually has a plot to tie in. Apparently you and your high school buddies are off to a basketball tournament when you suddenly find yourself trapped in this weird world of monsters, and you have to play basketball games and defeat them to free yourselves, basically. Not the greatest plot in the world, but it does work, it's functional, and it allows for some good fun. Now, this isn't necessarily a game that I would recommend to everyone. It is quite simplistic, but it is fun, especially if you've got a younger child, you wanted to do some sports gaming. The simple 2-button controls can really mean that they can get into the game and have fun playing it. It's relatively inexpensive to purchase, and you know, if you can pick up a full box copy for a reasonable price, then do so. You will have some fun with it. In a way, it's kind of a shame. I almost wish Sega had done other Nightmare themed sports games. Football Nightmare, Hockey Nightmare, Soccer Nightmare, but they didn't. They left it with this, Basketball Nightmare. A fun, odd curiosity on one of the games that made me the gamer I am today. I'm Learned Rob, thanks for your time.